Welcome to Along the Rock, brought to you by the Radar Free Press. I'm your host, Kaitlyn Blum. Today with us, we have Gary Camarano, and you are the Economic Development Director for Whiteside County.
Correct.
So there's a few exciting things going on right now for Whiteside County, or things that are in the works. The first one I wanted to talk about is the potential for the Prairie Hill Landfill site, the potential for that to become a solar farm. So where are we in the process for that?
Well, we recently put together an RFP, request for proposal, that's available to any solar farm developer that wants to put in a plan for developing a solar farm on the capped portion of the Prairie Hill Landfill. Basically, that's the little grassy hill that you see as you pass the main entrance. That's about an 80 acres facility or site on that facility that could be used for a solar farm, and the proposals are out there. We'd like to see some come in and with a plan for putting a solar farm there. How much they're willing to pay as a lease rate, what type of energy they look to produce there, and so on.
Yeah, how would that benefit Whiteside County?
Well, one, it's taking advantage of a brownfield that is going to have very limited use. So let's put something on there that can actually produce revenue for the county, as well as produce a clean, renewable source of energy that can move into the power grid and power homes, businesses, and so on. So it's just a way of being sustainable and renewable and actually getting a little bit out of it on the flip side there.
That is cool. Like you said, when it comes to these brownfield sites, there is very limited use for them. And this is just an example of one of the few ways it can be used. And like you said, it's for something like renewable energy. Like, what better way to use an old landfill site?
Right. It's not like, it's not going to be the power source for the entire country or anything like this. But, every little bit helps. If you want to make a change, make some incremental changes, and they pretty much add up.
So another thing that I've heard wind of is foreign investors, like there potentially being some opportunities in Whiteside County for that. Can you explain more about that?
Sure. Several years ago, a lot of our local industries were offshored. Either local companies were bought by larger companies and they decided to send that particular division or what have you overseas, China, Mexico, wherever. That created a lot of job loss and a lot of resources lost in the area. Well, things are starting to change as basically foreign businesses look to establish markets here in the U.S., locations for manufacturing and whatnot. They're starting to look, and it's not just the big metro areas that are going to benefit. Some of our areas here in Northwest Illinois are prime examples of sites that could be used and have businesses come and locate here. The German connection comes from two economic development organizations out of Germany that I had been talking with before COVID. COVID kind of interrupted a lot of things, including our discussions for mutually beneficial trade relationships and business opportunities. COVID's over, and now all of a sudden, conflicts in Europe and the world geopolitical have people thinking about what makes sense. And for European countries in particular, some of them feel that by putting some of their industries over here, it gets them in a good place to sell here in the U.S., as well as utilize some of the advantages of our aerospace industries, defense industries, automotive, and make connections there. Some countries have a rule that if you're going to make something for defense, you have to be in that country. Well, the Germans have now allowed that they can have something made in America end up in their defense machinery, so that there's opportunities for that. And it makes sense for some folks to locate near a Boeing or a Lockheed or whatever. So, coming over to the U.S. is a good example of what could happen when we have this mutually beneficial trade. So we'll be talking with some of our German counterparts, showing them around the area, seeing if there's a good mix here. And I think it could be substantial. The German government approved $500 billion in investments in the U.S. for their aerospace, automotive, and defense industries. And they need to find locations for these businesses. Now, they could be some, intensive, industrial development or some other smaller German niche manufacturers. So we're going to be available for those as well as other countries. You've got countries, Japan is going to be looking for, places to locate, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, Europe, Italy, there's a number of countries that will be looking for homes, and I think we're ideally situated. Whiteside County in Northwest Illinois, we're part of this Midwest manufacturing hub. So you've got Chicagoland right here, but you also got the Great Lakes manufacturing hub, which is, by country, Canada, U.S., multi-state. It has this beautiful inland waterway system reacting a lot of industry. If this area, this Midwest Great Lakes manufacturing hub were a separate country, it would be the fourth largest economy in the world. So there's a lot of activity going on around here. So if you want to be involved in that activity where you can be manufacturing something that might be used by someone within a half a day or a day drive here by truck or something, this is a great location. Now, compared to the Chicago area, our costs are lower here. Land costs, taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, commuting times. I recently put a post on LinkedIn where I took a picture of the gas price when I was getting some gas in the Chicago area. And then I took a picture of the price when I was in Northwest Illinois. The amount of difference between the two gas pumps, $1.07, that's significant.
Yeah.
If you were filling up each week, that could be a savings of $800 a year. If you're looking at the commute time, the average commute time in Whiteside County is 19.9 minutes. That's getting to work one way. Similar mileage, I took a picture of the Google map where your best route from O'Hare to McCormick Place, which is 20 miles, is here, and it will take you 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
So that's on a particularly good day. I've seen that number jump up to 1 hour and 45 sometimes, depending on the day and so on. And then if I took a picture of the Whiteside County Airport to Morrison, which is about 17 miles, similar distance, and it took 20 minutes. So there's verifiable that, you can get there quicker here as opposed to sitting in traffic for another 40 minutes out there. And if you do that by a round trip and whatnot, it came out that you were basically 17 and a half days in traffic.
Oh, wow.
So 2.5 weeks of your life is wasted in traffic. Mm-hmm. And that's the number of hours and, dividing it by minutes and stuff like that. What would you do with 2.5 extra weeks?
A lot, hopefully vacation.
Which is good for balance of life, work-life, right?
Yeah.
So this could be a good place to work. I mean, pre-offshoring, this was a very unique area for manufacturers, agricultural, logistics, and it still is. And then if we put on the layer of what's going to happen when we get our broadband fiber up and running and we have high-speed internet connectivity that's reliable, affordable, and everywhere, we can start factoring in things like the Internet of Things for manufacturing, artificial intelligence, precision ag, how those things will help our region. Telehealth, we'll get better health outcomes. Precision ag, the rural community farmers and whatnot, they'll see their crop yields go up higher, their input costs go lower. So they're going to be saving and producing more. So it's going to be more profitable. Plus, if we're producing more food, the question is always, we see more and more people out there, but there's only so much farmland. Well, if we're getting more out of it, and we're getting more out of it in a sustainable, renewable manner, that's a good thing for the rest of the planet as well. So, the Midwest is still going to be the agricultural bread basket, if you would, or corn basket, or soybean basket of the world. So that's, it's good for us to tap into this, and we want to make sure that with this tool, the broadband fiber that we're seeing being put in the ground now, that we're going to use it correctly. So we're going to bring in some experts to help with our broadband utilization initiative. This will basically be, how we're going to use precision ag better, how are we going to use manufacturing better, telemedicine, and so on. No sense having a great tool if we're not using it right.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of brings it in. You kind of put it all together. I was going to say, what made us such a good, spot to have such manufacturing. But like you said, it's the location plus the low cost of living. And then you did touch on the broadband, which I was going to ask about next, the fiber broadband, what impact that's going to have. What impact would that have, specifically on individuals that live in Whiteside County?
Well, I think the impact's going to be not just for individuals, but across the, the whole region. So, for example, individually, you don't have to worry about using more than one device in the home now. COVID pointed out the vulnerability of the services we were using. More than two people using a device and your speed slow down and whatnot. If you have a whole family there trying to do homework, remote work, things like that, it just became pretty much unusable. Families were having to drive kids into the McDonald's parking lot as a hotspot for their Wi-Fi or Culver's or wherever. That's not a response. That's just, a Band-Aid and a bad one at that part. So by correcting that we have this amazing tool that'll keep us connected, not only locally, but to the whole world. High speed, large bandwidth and whatnot. So for telemedicine, if you had a condition that required a specialist, that you had to go, let's say, once a quarter for a checkup or something, and you had to leave our area and drive to Chicago or Iowa City or someplace else, you're missing a whole day. Whether it's work or whatever, and if someone has to accompany you, two people are missing a whole day. So that adds up. That could be 4 or 8 days or even more, depending on the situation. Now, if we use telemedicine, and there's going to be a lot of that going on, I think, with specialists, and the idea that you can monitor in real time someone's health conditions, whether it's AFib or blood sugar or whatever, in real time, and you can be talking to that specialist no matter where he is or where you are, and do it over 15, 20 minutes instead of having to drive someplace for an hour or two or half a day or whatnot. And the time saving is going to be immense. So you'll probably get better outcomes with AI helping to read some of the tests and picking up on some of the cancers off the imaging, which they have been showing as a big tool for the medical profession to use, better outcomes, and people living longer and healthier. Is anything wrong with that?
Yeah.
No, nothing wrong with that.
So no, that's good. So it sounds like there's going to be a really widespread amount of uses for the new fiber broadband that's coming to the area, more than we can even imagine, honestly.
Right. Manufacturing, the legal profession, accounting profession, some of the smaller tasks that have to be repetitive and whatnot can now be automated. Your workflow will be improving. And again, I don't think we'll be losing people in the sense that, it's going to take someone's job. It's just going to make it easier to do that job and do more of it.
Absolutely.
So we're going to have a more productive workforce out here. Manufacturing, they'll be able to sense when a machine isn't running to 100% of the specification long before someone just using their ear or the human eye would be able to pick up on that. So with the sensor saying this one's running hot, needs more lubrication, or something's wrong, I need to adjust this. It happens sooner rather than later when it's about to break down. Having different functions like in precision ag. If you can get 4% more yield in your crops and save 15% in wasting resources going in or using them, more to that specified location, you're going to save money on the inputs and you're going to make more on the outputs. There's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, we're just seeing progress overall.
Exactly.
Well, that's great, Gary. I always like to end on a fun question.
Okay.
Okay, I want to ask you, you're in Whiteside County. Where are you going for lunch?
That depends on what I want to eat.
Yeah. Let's go for a light lunch.
Okay. Culver's sometimes, because they have some great salads there. Also, the butter burger, can't beat that. The custard there is also good. But, there's a lot of places out here. And,
I will admit, I did have Culver's today for lunch.
I think a lot of people do. Over in Fulton, there's drawing a blank on the name now, is the little Crumpets.
Oh, yes.
That's a
Crumpets
nice little
good.
place. Then we've had over in Morrison, we've had a couple of places open up, Urban Eats and the Doonesbury and the Bread Lady.
I just had Urban Eats for the first time Friday. That was great.
Yeah, so we're seeing more and more, nice little restaurants open up, and sometimes it can be dangerous. If I don't watch what I'm eating,
Yeah, dangerous for our pocket and our stomachs.
Yeah. But it's we're seeing a lot more good food coming out here, which is always nice. And
yeah. Well, thank you, Gary, for being here with me today.
You're welcome.
And thank you to our listeners and to our production crew as well. Remember that the Radar Free Press is free, so we do rely on those likes, shares, and comments to keep us thriving. And if you want to see more videos like this, check out theradar.online.